Alright, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Albert. If you are new to my YouTube channel, kindly go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's all about talking IT. So on my channel, I talk more about IT stuff. So I look at cloud technologies and the new IT tools that are in the market, and then sometimes I do a live demo on some of the tools so that my viewers can get to know how to use those tools. But today I am bringing you another video, and it's about how to provision Microsoft 365 into Okta using SWA and then Microsoft Graph. So the SWA is the single sign-on protocol, that is the Secure Web Authentication. And in this video, I'm going to show you how you can integrate Microsoft 365 into your Okta tenant. And after doing that, you can set up your API and then let Okta read from your Microsoft Azure Active Directory and then do all the importation. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to give permissions to Okta through Microsoft Graph. So I'm going to use Microsoft Graph to give permissions to Okta so that Okta can read and have full access to my Microsoft tenant. I have seen some videos of some people on YouTube using WS Federation. You can use that, but when you use WS Federation, you cannot get a full control of your Microsoft tenant. But with this video, I want to get a full control of my Microsoft 365 tenant, and then assign license and roles to the users in Okta. So basically, this is how I'm going to break it down. I have some users in my Okta tenant, and those users, they are not in my Microsoft 365 tenant. So if I'm going to assign a Microsoft 365 role and then license to the users, what I need is that I need to give Okta the permission to have a full access to my Microsoft tenant so that it can work. Or else after I have done the importation, the integration, after I have done the integration, the users in my Okta tenant will not be able to have access, will not be able to log in and then get into my Microsoft tenant and then have the license to use either the Outlook or the Microsoft Yammer or that kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to integrate Microsoft 365. After that, I'm going to do the provisioning. Then the provisioning is what I'm going to use the API, what we call the Microsoft API. I'm going to enter my Microsoft tenant admin username and password, and after that, I'm going to go into Microsoft Graph in the Microsoft Azure Active Directory, and then create an application. Register the Okta application in my Microsoft 365 tenant. And after registering the Okta application, I'll give an API permission to my Okta tenant so that the Okta can now talk to my Microsoft tenant. So basically, that's what I'm going to do, and it's going to take just a very short time to do this. So I want you to take your time and watch this video. Actually, the reason why I decided to use the SWA, I haven't really seen anybody doing this type of integration. So I said, you know what, let me just go ahead and then just do this video for the users, for my viewers to look at how to do this kind of integration and how to use a Microsoft Graph to do to give permissions to the Okta. So I want to take your time and then watch this video. All right, thank you. Okay, so let me close this one. All right, so this is my Okta dashboard. So I'm going to integrate Microsoft 365 into Okta, and I'm going to assign roles. So assign roles to the users in Okta. Microsoft 365 roles to the users in Okta, and I'll be using the Microsoft Graph to do the integration, to do the API integration. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to go to applications. Some people use WS Federation for their Microsoft 365, but I'll be using the Secure Web configuration to do that. So I go to applications, and then I go to then I go to browse app catalog. Microsoft has already been imported into Okta, so you don't need to go and then create. For example, when you come to application and you go to create app integration, you don't need to come and then create it from scratch. That is using SWA, Secure Web Authentication. No, so you don't need to do all this thing. Okta has already created or imported the Microsoft 365 here, is it? So you don't need to do that. You just come to the app catalog and then just go straight to Microsoft Office 365. So when you read it, you can see the functionalities here. It says that it has workflows connectors, it has workflow templates, the protocols SWA, XCIM, and when you look at the authentication here, this is it. For the SSO, it uses WS Federation, and it uses Secured Web Authentication, and these are the provisioning here. This is the workflows, this is the connectors actions here. So I'll just quickly go ahead and then add integration. All right, so now this is where the integration, this is how, sorry about that, this is how I start integration. So first of all, it's going to ask me for the Microsoft tenant name, and it has given you an example here. It says that enter your tenant name in Microsoft. For example, if your Microsoft tenant is acme.onmicrosoft.com, just enter acme. So mine is techbit. All right, then it says that your Office 365 company domain. So I have my own Microsoft 365 tenant, right? So I'm going to enter mine. So when you are doing it in your organization, you have to enter the organization tenant domain, right? So mine is techbit.on microsoft.com. So when you come to my tenant here, you can see this, what do we call it? You can see this thing here. This is it. This is my primary domain for it, right? That is this is the Azure AD, Azure Active Directory. When you come to the Azure Active Directory, this is where you're going to get it. So this is mine here. Yeah, so I enter it here. Now it says that display the following links, which simply means that when you do the integration, all these apps is going to show on the user dashboard. When you click here, the end user dashboard, all the applications are going to show up here for the users, right? That is, if you assign a user to the Microsoft 365, they are going to get the applications here. All right, let's go back. All right, so now the number of seats. Here you're not going to enter anything. You just going to leave it like that. Then application visibility, just leave everything as it is. You don't do anything. Then go to next. All right, so now this is the single sign-on options that you want to use. Either you want to use you can use the WS Federation, or you can use the Secure Web Authentication, but I'm going to use the Secured Web Authentication because of how I want to import it, how I want to do the integration. I have seen some people use WS Federation, but I want to go a little bit step further. I think that when you use the WS Federation, you don't need to set up the API, but I want to set up the API so that Okta will read from the Azure Active Directory of my tenant, right? Yeah, I want Okta to read it from there, and I want to import everything from Microsoft 365 into Okta. That's why I'm using the Secure Web Authentication. Some people would just use the Secure Web Authentication. Well, that is up to them, but I'm using the Secure Web Authentication for you to see. So here I'm going to select user set username and password, right? Then I'll come to application username format. I'm going to use email. Then I can go ahead and says that what here it says advanced API access allowed administrator to consent for advanced API access. I'll just leave it like that. I ain't gonna do nothing about it. All right, I'll click done. All right, so now we've done the integration. So when what do we call it? When you come here on the top here, you can see that here the SAML 1.1 is disabled. You can see that import users is disabled. All these things are disabled, which it simply means that I haven't done the provisioning. So when you come to mobile, not mobile, sorry. When you come to provisioning, you can see that it says that configure the API integration, and when you come here, it says import. Now, the only way that you can start the importing users and groups into your Okta tenant is for you to do the API integration. So I'll just go ahead and do the API integration. So when you come here, it says that configure API integration. You hit enable API integration, and here it's asking for the admin username and an admin user password. Now, the admin username simply, that is the admin username for your Microsoft 365. The person who created the Microsoft 365 account. That you see that when you create the Microsoft 365 account, they'll give you an admin username. They are going to ask you to create an what do we call it, an admin username and admin password. So this is what Okta is requiring. The reason why it's requiring is that so that Okta can have access to get into the Microsoft 365 and then read it from there. So now username, admin username will be all right. Yeah, so that Okta can have the permission to connect with the what do we call it, with the Microsoft 365 tenant. So I'll go ahead and enter the Microsoft 365 password. All right, now I need to test the API credentials. I have to make sure that the API credentials is working, right? I need to test it to see if it is working. All right, it says could not connect. Oh, okay, I understand the reason why. The reason why I could not connect is because I don't have the .com here, Microsoft.com. So that is the reason why it did not what do you call it, connect. So let's try it again. Okay. Normally it takes a little while before this. I think that okay, perfect. So now look at it. It says that Microsoft Office 365 was verified successfully. This is good news. This is what we want. Now you can go if you can go ahead and then click save. When you click save, you're going to get error. Let me say to try and then save this. All right, so now do you see that it says that there was a failure while saving provisioning settings? Please grant consent by authenticating with Microsoft Graph on the integration page. So now the reason why this is happening is because even though I put in my username and password, admin username and admin password for the Microsoft 365, and it has been able to connect with the Microsoft 365 tenant, what happens is that still Microsoft 365 Graph has to give permission to Okta to read it, right? The admin password is just to connect. So the API was just to connect with the Microsoft API, what do we call it, Microsoft tenant. So now Okta has been able to connect with what do we call it, with Microsoft 365. It has been verified. Yes, everything is correct. Now what is happening is that Okta needs permission to read from Microsoft 365, so that the what do we call it, the applications that are in the what do we call it, that are in Microsoft 365 can be imported into Okta. So now that is what is actually requiring. So I have not given Okta the permission to read my Microsoft tenant, or to have access to my Microsoft 365 tenant, so that they can import maybe either the groups or users or the applications into Okta. So now the next thing that I need to do is that I need to go to my Microsoft 365 tenant and then go and give permissions to Okta so that Okta can read it. Okay. All right. So then the next thing is that I need to go to my Azure Active Directory. Then I'll come to app registration. That is the first thing I'll do. I'll come to app registration, and then I'll come and then create a new app, and then name the app Okta. Perfect. Then after that, I'll select accounts in the organization directly only. So here is what do we call it? It's asking for the URL to redirect the URL. So here I'll select the web application, not the public client or the single page application. No, I'll select the web application because it's Okta. Then what the next thing I'm going to do is that I need to go and then copy my Okta tenant domain. So I'll just copy this. Copy and then bring it in here. Perfect. So now I need to register Okta. So here when I click register, I've registered Okta, but it's not done. So you can see that here it's displaying my Okta name, my Okta client ID that has been given to me by Microsoft, right? So this is the what do we call it, the first step. Now the second step is to go to the API permissions. Great. So this is the API permissions. So now what I'm going to do is that I need to what do we call it, give permissions, or give an admin permissions, so that Okta can now have the permission to read from here, right? To read my Microsoft 365 tenant and then have access to everything inside my Microsoft 365 tenant. So when you look at here, it says add a permission. No, grant admin consent for TechBet. Yes. So I'll click on here, and then I'll go. It says what, grant admin consent information. Do you want to grant consent for the requested permission for all accounts in TechBet? This will update any existing admin consent records. This application already has to match what is listed below. So I just go ahead and say yes. I just click yes. Perfect. Now I am done with here. So now let's go back to Okta. Yes. So now when I come back here to Okta, what is going to happen is that I need to authenticate with Microsoft Office 365. Now the API credentials has been verified, so I can go ahead and then authenticate with Microsoft 365. Now let's look at what is going to happen here. All right. So here I need to log in and then make sure that it is me. All right. So now this is what the Microsoft Graph is doing. So instead of what, permission requested, review for your organization, Okta Microsoft Graph client. So this application is not published by Microsoft or your organizations. This app will like to read user profile, which simply means that Okta want to sign in and then read user profile. Yes, read and write directory data, read and write all users full profiles, read and write all directory RBAC settings, read organizational information, read and write all users full profiles, read and write all groups, read all applications. When you come here, when you come to my Microsoft tenant, you can see this is what it says, like user.read. Right. So now I have granted Okta. So as you can see, this is the Okta API permissions. So I have granted Okta the permission. So now when I come back here, I'm trying to log in here. Where is it? Oh, it just went off. It just went off. Okay, let's hold on, let me see if I can bring it from here. There it is. So now Microsoft is displaying this thing to me that okay, the Okta want all these permissions. Should I accept it or not? So I just go ahead and say what? Accept. Okay. So now we are done with what? We're authenticating with Microsoft Office 365. Then we can go ahead and save it. Look at what is going to happen. Perfect. There you go. It's perfect. So now we have to do the next provisioning. So this is to the app from the Okta to Microsoft 365. So we need to come here and then edit, and then here you're just going to leave it like this. You don't the Office 365 provisioning type will just be the profile sync. So you come to create users, and then yes, you enable you should be able to have the ability to create users in Okta, and then for you say what, create or link user in Microsoft Office 365 when assigning the app to a user in Okta. So now you can, I should be able to update user attribute, yes. Deactivate users, yes, I should be able to deactivate users. If I deactivate the user, it should be able to deactivate the user in Microsoft 365. So as you can see, what, deactivate the user Microsoft Office 365 account when it's an unassigned in Okta, or the Okta account is deactivated. So if it's deactivated, it should be deactivated in Microsoft 365 account, right? And then sync password. Create a Microsoft Office 365 password for each assigned user and push it to Microsoft Office 365. Now I'm going to enable this one too, but here I'm not going to do a random generated password. It's going to be sync Okta password, and then I can go ahead and then hold on, I'll not save it yet. But when you come here, you can see the Microsoft Office 365 attribute mapping. As you can see, this is the we have the username and then the first name. So it's username, first name, and then what, last name. As you can see, the source of the first name, source dot last name. All right. So this is the attribute. When you come to here, I can then go ahead and do what, and then save this. Perfect. So when I save it, so now do you see what the magic that just happened here? So that all this thing here, import user is enabled, push password update is enabled, push new user is enabled, and push user deactivation is also enabled. So now when you come to Okta, that is Microsoft to Okta, when you come here you're not really going to do anything. I'm just going to show you what do we call it, I'm just going to show you this first name, last name, what do we call it, yeah, the mappings is exactly the same thing. So now I'm done with everything, so I have to then do assignment. So here I'm going to assign a user to the Microsoft Office 365. So I'll come here. Let's say I have a user in the organization and I want to assign this to the user. So I'm going to choose Chris Penn. So I'll click here, assign. Now this was what I was talking about. So you see here, it said that what, assign Microsoft Office 365 to people. Here, this is the license. It's asking for the license. I know that some people have never done this. I've not seen anybody doing this on YouTube. That's why I decided to go a little bit deeper, so for you to see. Here I'm going to assign the license because the person that I'm trying to give what do we call it, assign the Microsoft 365 app to, the person does not have a license in what do we call it, in Microsoft in my Azure AD. The person the user is not a Microsoft 365 user. The user is an Okta user that I created in Okta. So I have to assign a license for the person so that the person can be able to have access to the Microsoft 365 applications. So when you look at here, this is Chris at techbit.on.microsoft.com. I need to go ahead and then give the license to this person. So I'll just be like, okay, fine, I want to give this person Microsoft 365 the E5 developer, so without Windows and audio conferencing, common data service or Teams. So I can go ahead and then look for, let's see, Office 365 Advanced Security Management. So these are all the licenses that I got here. So as you can see, this is the license. So Microsoft Flow Free Exchange Foundation, Microsoft Flow Free developer, this. Okay, all right. Well, yeah. So I can go ahead and assign this license to him. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah. So Microsoft 365 developer without Windows Azure Information Protection Premium P2, and then I want the P1 also at the same time, and I want this. This is what I've been looking for. All right, I can also add this one to it. Then after here, I can now come here and then give the person a role. So when you come here, I can say I want the person to be an Azure DevOps administrator, the Azure Information Protection administrator, and then device. No. I can say I want a person to be a global reader, guest inviter, help desk administrator. I can say that I want the person to be a license. No, I don't want license. Knowledge administrator, teams, communication administrator, team administrator. Okay, it's okay. Then I can go ahead and then save this. Now, Crispin has been assigned. When I come to Microsoft and then my Microsoft tenant, that is the Azure Active Directory. When I come to let's go to Azure Active Directory, and then we can go ahead to users. When you come to users here, if I want to add a user, I can then go here, add new user, create a new user. So now if I to create a new user, it's going to ask me here to add administrative unit. So I'm going to ask, I'm going to add the person to maybe if what do we call one of these administrative units that I have here. One is ATL, one is New York City. Here add role is, so this is exactly the same thing that I was doing. So here when you see like when you look here, these are all the Microsoft roles, right? These are all the Microsoft roles. So I can decide to create a new user in here and give the person a role. Or I can go into Okta just like what I was doing, and then when I pick up the person, I can then give the person a role. So for example, if I should assign this and I come here, I can come to the roles and then assign a role, or I can at the same time go to my tenant and then create the user here and then add a role to the user. So that's one of the things that I really like about Okta. And to be honest with you, like I haven't really seen anybody doing this on YouTube. That's why I just decided that, you know what, I'm going to do this. I sat down, did it first just to make sure that everything was working before I did this video, right? So now let me go ahead and then cancel this. So now Crispin, I need to go ahead and then click on done. All right, so it said that one person assigned successfully. So I'm going to copy this and then log into what do we call it? Log into Crispin's user dashboard. I understand the reason why it's not really working. The password is not working. Yeah, because I had the caps on, so that is the reason why. Okay, so now you see that when when you look at top here, or the top right corner here, this side, you can see Chris. This is Chris end user dashboard. This is Chris dashboard. So whenever Chris, if Chris is in the organization and then Chris come in the morning and you assign the Microsoft 365 to Chris, this is what Chris is going to see. Chris is going to see this in his dashboard. Now remember, we have already assigned the license to Chris. So now Chris has the permission to use the Microsoft 365. So now I can go ahead and be like, okay, fine, let me go ahead and then open OneDrive and let's look at what is going to happen. So instead of what, trust this account in the Okta browser plugin. Normally what happens is that you need to download the Okta browser plugin you can come here, Google. I think I already have it downloaded. Google, and then type in the Okta browser plugin download. Yeah, so you can go ahead and then download it. I already have it downloaded. So when you come to, let me just take this one off. When you come to create here, it says that what if you trust this account, then click on trust. So now I have to go and then do this in the Okta browser plugin. So here, when I come to the top here, this is the Okta browser plugin here, even though it's still showing here. Okay, so all right, got it. So now even when I come here, I can even be open, what do we call, I can open everything here. So the tenant, I'm just still checking if I can see the tenant here. All right, so now this is the tenant. You see that it says on what, on dev 375223220.okta.com. That's exactly the same thing here. So now this particular Okta plugin is reading from this tenant. The previous one was reading my previous Okta tenant. That is the reason why when I tried to open it, it wasn't opening. So now this is my OneDrive. So I can come into OneDrive if I want to get into, let's say this is OneDrive. If I want to get into, let's say Yammer, Microsoft 365 Yammer, it should be able to get me without asking for a password. Yeah, and also I've already assigned a license to the user. So yeah, so there we go, Microsoft Engage. Yeah, so yeah, this is it. This is the Microsoft. So this is how you do the Microsoft 365 what do we call it, Microsoft 365 integration using the SWA, Secured Web Authentication, and also using Microsoft Graph. But I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you like the video, kindly go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel and then just like the video. Now, the next video that I'm going to do is that I'm going to do how to import users from your Microsoft Azure Active Directory tenant to your Okta tenant, and then also assigning certain roles in Okta to those users. All right, so that's going to be my next video, and I think that I'm also going to do another video for the Okta workflow automations, how to configure your Okta automations. All right, so if you like this video, kindly go ahead and then subscribe to my YouTube channel. I want to say thank you so much for your time. All right.